Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 mid-season points to prove. So this is going to be a bit of a different one, right? At the start of the season, I did 5 teams that had points to prove during 2020. And, well, I think it's time to update that. So I've made a list of 5 teams that stand out to me with points to prove. And I'm going to say what those points are, pretty much. And it's kind of a more of like, are you there? This is the sort of thing. Are you getting to where you want to be? And that's what we're going to look at in this video. So we're going to go from bottom to top because I've taken a few notes from like different levels of the league. So I've taken a team from the bottom of the league. You may be able to guess who it is. A team from near the top of the league, and then you've got a few from the middle as well. So this should be super interesting. So as I said, starting off with the bottom of the league, and I picked up Boston Uprising because in the May Melee and the week preceding the May Melee, we saw some glimmers of light from this Boston Uprising team since Punk has come in actually. And they got the weird win over the Gladiators that none of us expected. It stopped them from being one of the bottom 2 seeds. And then in the May Melee, they took Paris Eternal really close, all the way to 5 maps. So it was a really interesting look from the Boston Uprising. So my point to prove for them would be, is this the turning of a leaf? Is this a new beginning for the Boston Uprising that have been so poor all throughout this season? Are we finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for a team that has been so poor? Is it Punk that is doing this, or is it a new team ethic that is doing this? We know perhaps the back room of the Boston Uprising is not as perfect as some other teams, shall we say, and we know that the Boston Uprising have made some very interesting moves in the past. But the question is, can the Boston Uprising keep hold of their roster? And can they keep these sorts of interesting results going? Because if they can, they're quite capable of getting off the bottom of the league right now. They're not that far adrift. They've got the same amount of wins as Vancouver, and they've only got 1 less win than Washington. But we know the changes that Washington are making right now, so they are probably going to improve with time. So, the Boston Uprising, there is a glimmer of hope at last. When a few weeks ago we were looking at it and saying, this team is done for. This team is just write the season off and start again. And in some respects it probably will still be that. But there is a glimmer of hope for this Boston Uprising team not to be rooted to the bottom of the league. Not to be the Florida Mayhem or the Shanghai Dragons of the 2020 season. So, yeah, there's a glimmer of hope for this Boston Uprising team, and I want them to prove a point. I want them to say, we are not the worst team in the league. And it'll be incredibly interesting to see how Boston Uprising come out after this break and see if they can continue that little bit of momentum that they haven't had for the entire season. But next up is the Dallas Fuel. So I often talk a lot about the Dallas Fuel and say that I don't, put all my eggs in one basket with the Fuel team. They very often let you down and they never look as good as you think they're going to be. But this season is ever so slightly different because they have Decay and Doha, and those 2 players have been making a very interesting and substantial difference to this Dallas Fuel side. And obviously, no team can be fully carried by its DPS. There's no way that a team is going to do extremely well just with DPS carrying them. So we need to see the other parts of the Fuel step up, and we have been seeing that ever so slightly in recent weeks. So we've seen Gamsu and Note start to improve. We've seen the support step up, and they've just added Paintbrush from the Los Angeles Gladiators. So they have got a very interesting team, and they finally seem to have settled. Unlike last season where they were swapping around OG and Trill, they seem to have settled on a roster that they're going to field. And it looks like we might be seeing some consistency at this Fuel team for the first time in a very long time. The question is, can they make that count? I think they've got the quality to be a play-in team, maybe, just maybe, up around the Paris Eternal likes of teams, because they've got decent parts in this team. And it just depends whether they can apply those parts in a good way to get them results. And recently, it's been very interesting. I mean, we've seen them not do so badly against the San Francisco Shock in recent times. So this Dallas Fuel side is looking at the most promising point that it's been in its history, really, since its creation in the inaugural season. When it came in as that really hyped up, envious roster, it was touted as one of the best teams in the league and it never lived up to it. But finally, Fuel might be actually gaining some traction, and I want to see this Fuel side do well. I think the Dallas Fuel fans have been in a bad place for long enough, and I think it's time for them to finally get something to cheer about. That's what I would say. So next up is the London Spitfire. So London, it's been an interesting season for London so far, isn't it? They took a very long break. At the start, it looked okay. They took New York very close, but they got swept by Paris Tunnel, and then they got 3 wins on the bounce. They were all very close. And then they come back in and they sweep the Chengdu Hunters, but then they haven't won a match since. So it's an interesting look for London. And the thing I want them to prove is that there is progress in the coaching of this young side. So this London Spitfire roster is relatively inexperienced compared to a lot of the other teams in the league. But they have a wealth of quality and experience in their coaching staff. We all know about Pavane, Agape, so awesome guy as well. And they have an incredible amount of experience. And there are times when you see the coaching come in for London, you can see very, very good rotations. But this London side has a massive problem in applying pressure at times, in making fight advantages count. We have seen quite a few times this season this London Spitfire roster pick up a kill on an enemy teammate, and they don't seem to capitalize on it very well. They don't know when to go. They don't know when to press that massive green button saying, let's get in there. And it's costing London dearly at times. Dearly, dearly, dearly. And it's a shame because I honestly think there is quality in this roster. I honestly do think that. We've seen them take the Shanghai Dragons close. We've seen them take the New York Excelsior close earlier in the season. And that was at New York Excelsior's homestand, back when we had homestands. So I think there is quality in this London Spitfire side that just needs to be harnessed in the correct way. I'm not saying that this London Spitfire side is as good as the previous London Spitfire championship winning side that we saw before, but it seems to be a systemic problem that London are very, very inconsistent. It was the same with their original roster, and it seems to be it now. And I think it's just a case of, throughout the rest of this season, it's going to be a season of building for London. But throughout the rest of the season, I would like to see London improve. Slowly but surely, I'd like to see London improve. Learn to know how to take the initiative. Learn to know when to go in. And the more they get better at that, the better the team will get. Because they've got some really good components. Let's be honest, Highly hasn't been bad. Sanguinar has been good for a rookie year. JMac is probably the weakest out of them. Banar and Celestin have been good on the off tanks. And then we've seen a wealth of DPS quality. Glister is probably their best player. And we've seen Shui, we've seen Babel, we've seen Although, and they've looked good. They haven't looked brilliant, but they've looked good. So they are serviceable, this London Spitfire side, and if they can just nail down this problem of engagement, shall we say, in fights, then I think this London Spitfire side has a possibility of reaching the play-ins. But they have to sort this out, and it has to be sooner rather than later, because let's be honest, we are halfway through the season now. They had a very long break, and it's still a problem. It's still a problem. And we are now in June, and the league started in February. So, and this team has been together since the end of last year. So, yeah, there's been a long time to work these kinks out now, and I would like to see them start being worked out, and things to start clicking with this London side. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this London side does for the rest of the season. But now we're working our ways into the upper echelons. So the next one is the Seoul Dynasty. So I got a lot of stick for putting Seoul at 8th in my power rankings, and I still stick by it. Because yes, Seoul showed us some different comps in the May Melee. But Seoul worked with the freedom in the May Melee of being able to choose whatever they wanted to counter whatever the Shanghai Dragons or Guangzhou charged through at them. And I think Seoul worked better with that freedom of no hero pools. And I want to see Seoul hit some consistency in the regular season, when week in, week out, you're getting different heroes banned. You're getting the heroes that were dominant last week banned, and then so on and so forth. I want to see this Seoul Dynasty side do well when, say, May's banned. Or, well, Echo is a bad example because Seoul aren't that good on the Echo. But if Seoul are forced into an Echo meta, I want to see them do at least well enough to keep them up there until the next week when they can play something that they're much more stronger at. So, Seoul Dynasty, it's still an issue of consistency for me. And that is my point to prove for Seoul Dynasty going into the rest of the season. Prove to me that you can be consistent. And then you're higher than 8th, you're higher than your current placing 9th, you're perhaps a top 6 team, maybe higher. So, this is a team with the parts that can compete with the best in the league. They have championship winning players in this side. They are not adverse to the pressure, and they know how to get the results. So I just want them to apply it well, and the Seoul Dynasty coaching staff is very good as well. So it's odd that there's so many parts of this Seoul Dynasty side, so many good parts of this Seoul Dynasty side, I should say, and they have struggled to the extent that they have in the early part of the season. So I want to see them do well, and I want to see them prove to me that they can be consistent. But the last one on this list is going to be the New York Excelsior. So New York are making some changes. They brought in Haxel, who is a massive addition, and I wonder what that means for Libero. Obviously, this is at time of recording, so if anything happens between now and then, interesting. But Haxel is a big addition. You know, we all know how good Haxel is, Rookie of the Year sort of thing. But I want to see New York do this season what they haven't done in any other season, because we know New York are consistent. They will be a top 5 team every season. They are consistent. They are very good. In the first season, they were what? They were first in the first season. In the second season, in the 2019 season, they came second in stage 1, and in the overall standings, they came third, just behind. Well, I say just behind. Well, they actually were just behind San Francisco. So they're always consistently at the top of the standings. And this season, we go back into it and they find themselves in 4th again, with strong teams coming up like Shanghai and Philadelphia and Florida. So I want to see them. I don't doubt that New York will be up there. I want to see them in the playoffs prove to me that they are a playoff winning team. I want to see them take home a trophy. We will have a June tournament, just like the May Melee. I want to see New York Excelsior go out and win that thing. I want them to prove that they will not choke. I want them to prove that the quality they have got is not being put to waste in some respects. New York have always been so close. They failed in the inaugural season. Last season, they did okay, but they didn't get to where they wanted to be. This season, I want them to see them complete the journey. That's what I want to see from New York Excelsior. They have been a team that's been so close to winning this league in 2 years, and I want them to do it. I want them to finally get the crown that has been eluding them. And then we can all stop, accusing them of choking or whatever. But New York, they're competing with the big boys, and we will see where it goes. We will see if they can match the Shanghai Dragons in that Asian region. We will see if they can get a title to their name for this season, and we will see if they can take it all the way in the overall playoffs at the end of the season, because that is my biggest question about the New York Excelsior. It's nothing about consistency. It's nothing about where they're going to end up. We know they're going to be a playoffs team. It would be a massive shock if they weren't. So the only question remains, Can they just go and win it? Can they not choke? But those are my 5 things to look out for the rest of the season. 5 points to prove for different teams. And it'll be super interesting to see how London and Dallas and Boston get on. How Seoul, see if we get the consistency, and obviously much later down the line to see if what happens at the New York Excelsior, see if they can get any glory this season that has been eluding them for quite a while now. But I am going to leave it here for this one. I'm still waiting for news at time of recording on, you know, what the schedule is and stuff like that. I hope they don't leave it too late because the league is returning this weekend. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.